doubt?
Sir.
Okay. Yesterday we have completed that. Okay, that concepts. Once again, we'll go with the topic that is given in the NCERT textbook. Living organisms have a number of carbon compounds in which cyclic rings can be found. So along with the carbon, because ribose is a carbon compound. Okay, along with the ribose. Okay, and when you observe, okay, along with that, some heterocyclic ring structures are also present. What is that heterocyclic ring structure? Nitrogen base. Okay, that is the heterocyclic ring can be found. Some of these are nitrogen bases. Okay, what are the different types of nitrogen bases? Means adenine, guanine, cytosine, uracil, and thymine. Okay, that is when found attached to a sugar, they are called nucleosides. So when the nitrogen base binds with the sugar molecule, that is ribose or pentose sugar, we call it as a nucleoside. And next, if a phosphate is also found esterified to the sugar, they are called nucleotides. So when a nucleoside binds with the phosphate with the phosphoester bond, the resultant as a nucleotide. So, okay, what are the different types of nucleosides? Means adenosine, guanosine, thymidine, uridine, and cytidine are nucleosides. Okay, when these nucleosides binds with the phosphate with the help of phosphoester bond, the resultant structure we call it as a nucleotide. What are the different nucleotides? Means adenylic acid, thymidilic acid, guanylic acid, uridylic acid, and cytidylic acid are the nucleotides. Okay, that is. And next, nucleic acids like DNA and RNA consists of nucleotides only. Okay, nucleotide. That means what this nucleic acid, that the DNA or RNA we are saying no. What this DNA and RNA are made up of means they are made up of this with this nucleotide. Just like proteins are made up of amino acids. Okay. Just like polysaccharides are made up of simple sugars. The same manner, the nucleic acid is made up of a large number of nucleotides. And such nucleotides together, they form a structure called DNA and RNA. And this DNA and RNA act as the genetic material in the living organisms. In some, okay, in most of the organisms, DNA is the genetic material. And in some organisms, okay, some organisms are some viruses, we can say, okay, we can't say completely as living. Some some viruses are also having this RNA as the genetic material. Okay, some plant and animal, okay, and few animal virus. Most of the plant virus and few animal virus are having a RNA as the genetic material. But most of the living organisms, starting from bacteria to the human, okay, the highly evolved human, okay, in all these organisms, we'll find the DNA as the genetic material. Okay, that is so when you observe here, we can see some structure of that. So we can see here, suppose we can take this ribose molecule or deoxyribose, anything we can take. Okay, this is the one sugar molecule. Okay, when you observe, we already said some nitrogen base. Okay, we are representing like a adenine. Some adenine molecule is there. Okay, we can take this one as a nitrogen base. So, okay, this is the nitrogen base. Okay, this nitrogen base. Okay, here, what happened? This nitrogen base will be having a, it is a heterocyclic compound, we said. That means it consists of nitrogen. Okay, that is NH group. Okay, it will be having a NH group. Suppose this is the adenine. Okay, adenine, it will be having a NH group. Okay. Okay, it is having NH group. And here we can find OH. Okay, here we'll find OH group. Okay, here NH group. And now what happens, okay, between these two? Okay, bond, and it will be having a double bond O. Okay, NH, okay, NH double bond O. Okay, here OH is there. Here OH is there. Here N double bond OH is there. So OH is there. And now what happens means, okay, this OH and this OH will combine and results in the formation of a water molecule and results in the formation of a water molecule. So water molecule will form as a result. What happens? This one. Here we can see. Okay, that is. So this is the N-glycosidic bond. Okay, N-glycosidic bond. This is the N-glycosidic bond. With the help of N-glycosidic bond, the any nitrogen base, it may be the adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, or uracil, whatever it is. Okay, it will bind with this first carbon. Okay, first carbon and NH. Okay, and okay, amino group of okay, one nitrogen base. Okay, will react and release one molecule of water, and the leftover oxygen, here OH is there, here OH is there. Okay, H2O will be released, and that means water molecule will be released, and the leftover oxygen will joins the adjacent ribose and nitrogen base, and that bond we are calling it as N-glycosidic bond. Okay, that is N-glycosidic bond. With the help of N-glycosidic bond, then ribose or deoxyribose binds with the nitrogen base, and the resultant structure we are calling it as a nitrogen base. Okay, we are calling it as a nucleoside, and that, okay, this nucleoside now bind with the now bind with the phosphate molecule. Okay, already we said phosphate, now the structure, okay, the structure of phosphate. So we can take this one. Okay, here we can see. Here OH group is there, here OH group is there. So here also what happens means one molecule of water will be removed. Okay, from here also one molecule of water is removed. And now the leftover oxygen, okay, the leftover oxygen will join the, okay, this oxygen is joining the carbon and the phosphate. Now this bond, we are calling it as a ester bond. This bond we are calling it as a ester bond. Okay, this bond we are calling it as a ester bond. Okay, this bond we call it as a ester bond. Ester bond. Okay, this is N-glycosidic bond, this is ester bond. Now this structure, whole structure, we are calling it as a nucleotide. We are calling it as a nucleotide. Like this, okay, this is one nucleotide. If you take another, this is one nucleotide. Okay, we can take another nucleotide. Okay, this is one nucleotide, and we'll take another nucleotide. Okay, okay, this is first nucleotide. This is the second nucleotide. Okay, now, so this nucleotide will bind with the adjacent nucleotide or second nucleotide with the help of another. That means here we can see at the third, okay, in the ribose, okay, at the third carbon, we have got one hydroxyl group. Here we can see one hydroxyl group. One hydroxyl group we can see. And here also we can see one more hydroxyl group. Okay, here both two hydroxyl groups are there now. So now what happened? These two OH groups will react. And here also one molecule of water is removed. Okay, here also one molecule of water is removed. And okay, and only oxygen is left. Only oxygen is left. And now this oxygen binds with the adjacent molecule. And now here also, this bond also, we call it as a ester bond. This is also a ester bond. Okay, that is ester bond. So that means a phosphate will form two ester bonds, one with its own nucleotide with the fifth carbon. If the fifth carbon of the its own nucleotide molecule, one ester bond is formed. Another ester bond is formed with the adjacent nucleotide. Okay, the hydroxyl group which is present at the third carbon of a adjacent nucleotide molecule, the same phosphate will form another ester bond. So that means a phosphate is forming two ester bonds. That's why this bond we call it as a phosphodiester bond. This bond we are calling it as a phosphodiester bond. Okay, this bond we are calling it as, okay, here one ester bond, okay, with the fifth carbon of its own nucleotide, and another ester bond with the adjacent nucleotide molecule with third one of the adjacent nucleotide molecule. And that, okay, so a phosphate is forming two ester bonds. That's why with the two different nucleotide molecules, that's why this bond we are calling it as a phosphodiester bond. So what is the bond that is linking the two nucleotide molecules means phosphodiester bond. And such large number of phosphodiester bonds will be present with the large number of nucleotide molecules and forming a long chain of okay, either RNA or DNA depending upon the type of the sugar. Here we have taken the deoxyribose, so it will form DNA. Okay, if you have taken the, okay, ribose, it will form the RNA, that is ribonucleic acid, or DNA, that is a deoxyribonucleic, depending upon the type of the ribose sugar, whether it is ribose or deoxy, depending upon that, it is named as RNA or DNA. Understood? Anybody is having any doubt? Okay, like this large number of nuclei. Okay, further, one more nucleotide may come and join. Okay, if you take another nucleotide molecule, okay, this is another phosphodiester bond. So like this, one, okay, one above the other, okay, the nucleotide molecules will join, and finally, okay, we can take another one. Okay, we can take another molecule, and that also will come and join. So like this, many, okay, for example, if we take human, in human, okay, human possess 3.3 into 10 to the power of 10 nucleotides. Okay, 3.3 into 10 to the power of 10 nucleotides are present in the human cell per haploid number. If the cell is a haploid, it will be 3 to the power of 10. Okay, if it is diploid, it is 6.6 into 10 to the power of 9. Okay, 10 number of nucleotide molecules will be present. Okay, that is the number of nucleotide molecules that are present in the each cell, each living cell, or each cell with a nucleus, because the genetic material is present inside the nucleus in eukaryotic cells. DNA. Okay, such. So how these nucleotide molecules are joined means with the help of this phosphodiester bond. Here one ester bond and here another ester bond. So phosphate, as the phosphate is forming two ester bonds, we are calling it as a phosphodiester bond. And finally, it forms a long chain of nucleotide molecules that is called a nucleic acid. There are two types of nucleic acids. One is the DNA and the second one is RNA. Okay, that is. We can see here ribose, This is glucose, this is ribose. Anybody is having any doubt? Okay, here we can see some of the okay, this is purine, this is pyrimidine. You can see, okay, purine, which is adenine. Okay, example is given like adenine. Okay, adenine having a two heterocyclic ring structures. One is hexagonal and one is a pentagonal. So together they are forming the purine. That's why this is large. But when you observe the purine, one purine is given like uracil with only one ring structure, which is hexagonal. So that's why the purines are larger in size, whereas the pyrimidines are smaller in size. The reason is also there. That one we'll discuss later. Okay, and next adenosine. Okay, that is this is ribose, and this is one nitrogen base, which is binding with the okay ribose to form a adenosine. Okay, like this uridine. When uracil binds with the ribose, we are calling it as a uridine. These two are nucleosides. And finally, the ribose with adenine, that is a nucleoside, and this nucleoside binds with the phosphate to form phosphodiester bond. To form a to form a nucleotide molecule with the help of ester bond. Okay, that is. And next, okay, because of the different metabolic activities or metabolic reactions that are taking place in the living organisms, we obtain different molecules, and these molecules, depending upon their importance, okay, in the other metabolic activities, okay, these chemical substances that are present in the living organisms, which we commonly call it as metabolites, they are differentiated into two types: primary and secondary metabolites. Okay, there is the different types of chemical substances that are formed because of different metabolic activities in the living organisms, we call it as metabolites. And these metabolites are divided into two groups. There is a primary and a secondary metabolites. What are those that we will discuss here? The most exciting aspect of chemistry deals with isolating thousands of compounds, small and big, from living organisms, determining their structure, if possible, synthesizing them. So that means okay, we already said very clearly while we are understanding the composition of this composition of different components that are present in the cell, okay, the most exciting aspect of chemistry deals with isolating thousands of compounds. Okay, thousands of compounds, small and big. That means okay, from the acid soluble fraction we got some thousands of chemicals, and in the acid insoluble fraction also we have got a large number of, so whether they are small or big, we'll find some thousands of chemical substances in the living organism. And next, okay, we are trying to understand the structure of these chemical substances, and if possible, we are synthesizing how these chemical substances are. We are trying to understand how these all these chemical substances are synthesized in our body. So, if one were to make a list of biomolecules, that means whatever the chemical substances that are present in the living organisms, we call it as biomolecules. So when we start listing all these molecules, such a list would have thousands of organic compounds. So that means when we start listing, that means we should try to write all these chemical substances. Okay, we'll find some thousands of organic compounds, including amino acids, sugars, etc. Including amino acids, sugars, etc. Okay. So if one were to make a list of biomolecules, such a list would have thousands of organic compounds, including amino acids, sugars, etc. For reasons that are given in section 9.10. Okay, we can call these biomolecules as metabolites. So as they are the part of the different metabolic activities that are taking place in the living organisms, okay, these biomolecules also we can call it as a metabolite. So in animal tissues, one notices the presence of all such categories of compound shown in figure 9.1. Okay, and in 9.1 we have come across the carbohydrates, proteins, fats, okay, and next vitamins, minerals, and all that we have come across. So, okay, in animal tissues, we'll find all those, whatever we have given in the table 9.1, all those elements are present in the, okay, in the animal tissues. Okay, and these are called primary metabolites. So, all these chemical substances that are present in the animal tissues, we are them as metabolites. We are calling them as metabolites. So in animal tissues, one notices the presence of all such categories of compounds shown in figure 9.1. These are primary metabolites. However, when one analyzes plant, fungal, and microbial cells, one would see thousands of compounds other than these called primary metabolites. Example, alkaloids, flavonoids, rubber, essential oils, antibiotics, colored pigments, scents, gums, spices. So when you observe the, okay, when you observe the chemical analysis of okay, plant tissue or fungal tissue or microbial cells, okay, one would see thousands of compounds other than these primary metabolites. So other than this, that is the carbohydrates, proteins, fats, amino acids, nucleic acids, vitamins, these all these chemical substances, okay, some other, okay, some other chemical substances are also present, okay, along with the primary metabolites we'll find some other okay, chemical substances like alkaloids. Alkaloid we'll find caffeine. When you observe the coffee seeds and tea leaves, we'll find a, okay, alkaloid called caffeine. If you observe a, okay, tobacco plant, we'll find an alkaloid called okay, nicotine. Okay, we'll find an alkaloid called nicotine. And next, flavonoids. Okay, some flavonoids are present. Okay, and rubber, we are extracting rubber from the plants. Okay, we are obtaining essential oils, some essential oils. Okay, that is okay, perfumes in the use of perfumes. Okay, we are obtaining certain essential oils. And next, we are obtaining certain antibiotics. Okay, and we are obtaining certain colored pigments. Observe, okay, indigo ferratinctoria, a plant called indigo ferratinctoria. Okay, from this plant, okay, from this plant, okay, we'll extract a violet color dye or indigo dye. Okay, indigo dye is obtained from this indigo ferratinctoria. Okay, that is so that okay, that means we are getting colored pigments, scents, gums. We are obtaining gum. Okay, that is okay. If you are having a neem tree nearby you, okay, go and remove the bark of the neem tree. You can observe very clearly the, okay, the release of the gum from that okay, injured tissue. Okay, that is gum. Okay, and spices, we are getting a lot of spices. Okay, a lot of spices we are getting. All these are okay, produced as a result of okay, certain metabolic reactions, but not, they are never used by the plants. They are stored in the plants. They need to be excreted, but the plants do not have that mechanism to excrete. So they store in different parts of the plant body, and these are called as secondary metabolites. So these, okay, other than the chemical substances which are in different metabolic activities, okay, which are not involved in metabolic activities, they are usually produced in the plants or fungi or some bacteria, but not metabolically useful, but stored in different parts of the plant body. Okay, and these chemical substances we are calling it as secondary metabolites, like alkaloids, flavonoids, rubber, essential oils, antibiotics, colored pigments, scents, gums, spices, etc. While primary metabolites have indefinite, okay, identifiable functions and play known roles in normal physiological. We do not at the moment understand the role or functions of all the secondary metabolites. So that means, okay, the functions of all the primary metabolites are known. We know very well. The carbohydrate, they are involved in providing energy. Proteins, they are involved in building up of the body. Okay, fats, storage, and okay, whenever the organism needs the energy, okay, at the time the fats and these lipids are the structures of the cell membranes. Okay, like this we'll find. And vitamins, they are involved in different okay, chemical reactions, enhancing the, okay, that means they are involved in activating the enzymes and helping in a metabolic process. So like this, there are different okay, organic substances which are involved in different metabolic process, and all these are called as primary metabolites. That means they have got some identifiable functions, and those are involved in a normal physiological activities. Such molecules we are calling it as primary metabolites. But the element, okay, the chemical substances, okay, which, okay, the chemical substances which roles are not at known well, and these are called as the secondary metabolites. Okay, in host organ. However, many of them are useful to human welfare. However, many of them are useful to human welfare. Example, rubber, making of rubber goods. Okay, drugs, we are getting certain drugs means medicinal purpose. Okay, spices, we are making, okay, scents we are using for making perfumes, and pigments for making, okay, for coloring the clothes. Okay, clothes, okay, after okay, the cotton is white in color, but we are wearing different colored clothes. How these colors are developed or produced means by using this pigments that are extracted from plants. Okay, all they are not useful to the plant, but we are making use of them. Okay, the human is making use of them, and such chemical substances which are not usually involved in different metabolic activities of the living organisms, such metabolites we are calling it as secondary metabolites. Okay, secondary metabolites have got ecological importance. Okay, in the later chapters, and yes, we will learn more about this. Okay, some are having certain ecological value. Ecological value means they are providing certain economy to the country or to the farmers. Okay, we can see what are the pigments, okay, that are obtained. Carotenoids, okay, anthocyanins, that is violet color, anthocyanins, like this. And next, alkaloids like morphine. Okay, morphine is obtained from a Papaver somniferum. Okay, and when morphine is a, okay, it is having medicinal value, but it is abused. Okay, this is abuse because it acts as a sedative. Okay, this morphine acts as a sedative, generally used after surgeries to, okay, to relieve from the pain. But in, okay, initially it was used for that purpose, but later it started using, okay, it started abusing, okay, and used as a, okay, and used as a drug addiction. And next, codeine. Codeine is another alkaloid. Codeine. Okay, if you observe, if you are having any drug syrup, okay, sorry, cough syrup. Okay, if you are having any cough syrup in your home, once go and check the composition of that cough syrup. Definitely, you'll find the codeine. Okay, this codeine is also a sedative used as a medicinal purpose. But if you use indiscriminately, it is also can be abused. Okay, and next, terpenoids like monoterpenes. Okay, there is essential oils like lemongrass oil. Lemongrass oil, that means from the lemon, okay, grass, okay, will extract a certain oil which is used as a perfumes. Okay, and next, essential oils, and next, toxins like heparin and resin. Okay, this resin is a toxic substance. Okay, generally, okay, it is having certain medicinal value. If you use it at a right composition, it is having certain medicinal value. If you use at a higher concentration, it is act as a poison. And also heparin is also a, it is also having a, okay, medicinal value, but it is often abused. And next, listings like a concavalin A. Lysine. Lysine means lipids. Okay, drug. Okay, drugs. That means some are used as a medicinal purpose. Vinblastine, curcumin. Okay, curcumin. Curcumin means turmeric. Okay, turmeric. This turmeric is having this okay substance which is having the talk. That's why. Okay, this turmeric we generally use as an antiseptic. Why we are using as an antiseptic means it consists of a chemical substance called curcumin. This curcumin is an antibiotic. And next, polymeric substance. That means which are used in different ways, like rubber, gums, cellulose. Okay, the clothes that we are making use of, or that which we are wearing. Okay, they are obtained from a cotton. They are all made up of cotton. No? This cotton is that cotton fiber is nothing but made up of cellulose. Is made up of cellulose. So these are the different types of bio. Okay, this metabolites that are present in the living organism, which are differentiated as a primary and secondary metabolites. Okay, that is understood, all of you. Anybody is having any doubt? Regarding primary and secondary metabolites. Anybody is having any doubt regarding primary and secondary metabolites?
No doubt, sir.
Okay, that is. And next, coming to the bio macro molecule, that means till now we have discussed about only the compounds which are smaller in size and they are obtained in the acid soluble fraction. That means while we are okay, while we are conducted one experiment now to understand, okay, to separate the organic molecules. Okay, that in that experiment, okay, whatever the substances that we have discussed up to now, all they are bio micro molecules. They are small molecules because they can muslin cloth and get dissolved in the acid solution. So they are obtained in the acid soluble fraction. And all those chemical substances which are obtained in the acid soluble pool, they are called as bio micromolecules. Whereas there is one feature common to all these compounds found in the acid soluble pool. So that means they have molecular weights ranging from 18 to around 800 Daltons approximately. So the molecular weight of the bio micromolecules that are obtained in the acid soluble fraction, okay, the ranges from 18 to 800 Daltons. Okay, 18 to 800 Daltons. That is the range of molecular weights. Okay, that is. And next, the acid insoluble fraction. Now we are discussing. That means usually what molecular weight of a bio micromolecules are molecules that are obtained, the organic molecules that are obtained in the acid soluble fraction means 18 to 800 Daltons. Okay, and this next one you observe here, the second part of the okay experiment, that is the acid insoluble fraction. That means whatever the component that is retained on the retained by the muslin cloth, which is not filtered through the muslin cloth and retained in the muslin cloth, okay, and that will form as the acid insoluble fraction. As only 4 types of organic compound, that means the acid insoluble fraction usually consists of only 4 compounds. Okay, but the acid soluble fraction is having thousands of different organic molecules. But the acid insoluble fraction mainly consists of 4 compounds, that is proteins, nucleic acids, polysaccharides, and lipids. These classes of compounds, with the exception of lipids, have molecular weights in the range of 10,000 Daltons and above. So that means here we can see the lipids are an exception. Already I told you very clearly while we are discussing about lipids. Okay, lipids are having molecular weight less than 800 Daltons, but still they are present in the acid insoluble fraction. Okay, leaving the lipids, the remaining all other bio macromolecules, that is okay, proteins, nucleic acids, and polysaccharides. All these molecules are larger in size, okay, and they are present in the acid insoluble fraction. Okay, for this reason, biomolecule, that is the chemical compound found in living organisms, are of two types. Okay, for this very reason, okay, biomolecule, that is chemical compounds found in living organisms, are of two types. One, those which have molecular weight less than 1000 Daltons are usually referred to as biomicromolecules or simply biomolecules, while those which are found in the acid insoluble fraction are called macromolecules or biomacromolecules. So the biomolecule, that means the whatever the chemical substances that are present in the living organisms are divided into two groups. So all those molecules which are having molecular weight less than 1000 Daltons, all the molecules which are having molecular weight less than 1000 Daltons are usually referred to as biomicromolecules or simply as biomolecules. As whatever the molecule, mainly there are four biomolecules are present in the acid insoluble fraction. That is proteins, nucleic acids, polysaccharides, and lipids. All they form as a biomacromolecules. Okay, whatever the chemical substances, exception to lipids, the remaining all other molecules that are present in the acid insoluble fraction, all they comes together as a biomacromolecules. Okay, here we can see the molecules in the insoluble fraction, with the exception of lipids, are polymeric substances. That means except the lipids, the remaining all other molecules are biomolecules are polymeric substances of many small, okay, many, okay, a large number of smaller subunits. Okay, that is there. Okay, exception to lipids. Okay, then why do lipids whose molecular weights do not exceed 800 Daltons come under acid insoluble fraction? So when you observe the lipids are having the molecular weight. Okay, the lipids are having the molecular weight less than 800 Daltons, but still they are placed in the acid insoluble fraction. Why they are present in the acid insoluble fraction means, okay, that is a okay, macromolecular fraction. Okay, that is the lipids are indeed small molecular weight compounds and are present not only as such but also arranged in structures like cell membrane and other membrane. So when you observe the lipids are not only present as a free compounds in the cell, are not only present as a free compounds in the cell. Okay, they are also associated with the cell membranes as the structural components. So because of this, what happens when we grind a tissue? That means for differentiating, for separating the biomolecules that are present in a tissue, what we are doing, we are taking a pestle and mortar. Okay, in the mortar, what we are doing, we are placing a small piece of the in a tissue, and we are placing a small amount of okay, this okay, trichloroacetic acid or acid solution, and later we are pasting. Okay, we are grinding to a small, okay, thick paste. So when we are grinding, what happens when we grind a tissue? We are disrupting the cell structure. Okay, when you are grinding, okay, even though if you are not adding, but when you grind the tissue, some water will comes out. Why? Because from where this watery substance is obtained means this water is obtained because of the rupture of the okay cells. As a result, after grinding, even if you don't add also, will get a loss of water. So that is because of the disrupting of cell structures. So while grinding, what happens? We are disrupting the cell membranes and broken into pieces and form vesicles which are not water soluble. So these vesicles are transformed as a as a water insoluble. Therefore, these membrane fragments in the form of vesicles get separated along with the acid insoluble pool, and hence in the macromolecular fraction, lipids are not strictly macromolecules. So when you observe this macromolecules, so when you observe this macromolecules, the macromolecules, okay, that means even though the lipids are having a less molecular weight, but because as they are present as the structural component of the cell membrane, when you are grinding these lipids which are associated with the cell membranes, they form vesicles, and these vesicles get separated along with the acid insoluble pool, and hence in the macromolecular fraction. So as they are not soluble in water and also in the acid, so they cannot get filtered along with the acid soluble pool. So they formed as a macromolecular fraction. So when you observe here, okay, when you take the molecular weight, they are considered as micromolecules. But when you observe the solubility, okay, but they are considered as a biomacromolecule. So when you observe these two conditions, lipids are not, okay, lipids are not set as strict macromolecules. So depending upon the features, they may be placed under a, okay, if we take molecular weight, they are placed under a biomicromolecule. But if we take solubility, they are placed under biomacromolecules. That is what we can observe with reference to why the lipids are not okay. That means why the lipids are not considered as a true micromolecules or macromolecules. Why? Because of these two features. One is their solubility. As they are not soluble in a acid solution, they cannot get filtered. Okay, or they will not get filtered, and they are placed in the biomacromolecules. But if you take the molecular weight, okay, they are having molecular weight less than 800 Dalton. So, okay, if you take that one into consideration, okay, they have to be placed under a biomacromolecules. So that's why what the scientists are saying, that means lipids are not strict, okay, not strictly biomacromolecules. Understood? Why lipids are not considered as a micromolecules? Why they are considered as a macromolecules based upon their solubility? Okay, that is what we can see here.